Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me very quickly pay a tribute to our panel, but especially I want to recognize J2. J2 is Philippines' most lethal weapon, because without J2, they could not have reduced the threat of terrorism so significantly. It is the brain power behind many of the initiatives that has led to the decapitation of the terrorist leadership, and also driven fear into those organizations so that new people will not join them. So I want to pay a tribute to the general. I've known him over many years, and I hope that you will lead Philippines Armed Forces in the future. Let me speak to you about the transformation of the threat, because as the threat has reduced from terrorism, we are seeing another shift. Terrorist groups are becoming more criminal. So many of the terrorists are interviewed in the recent years, especially in the south of the Philippines. They are not typical terrorists. They are engaged very much in crime. So the crime terror is evident. When Abu Sayyaf first emerged, Abu Sayyaf also was a part criminal, part terrorist network. But today I am seeing two very interesting trends. One is cigarettes. So in 2023, Philippines government, look at the loss, 25.5 billion due to illicit trade of cigarettes. So many of the terrorist groups in the south that have been dismantled, their fragmented entities are operating in this domain. So General Browner and our general and others are now focusing on breaking that criminal nexus, because it is the crime that is funding and revitalizing and probably may even revive terrorism in the future. So the lifeline of the terrorist group is the finance. And today we have seen one is cigarettes and the other is drugs. About drugs, I will come to you in a minute. But on the cigarette smuggling, let me share with you some of the key seizures in Sulu and in Basilan, and also elsewhere where the cigarettes were moving towards these threat groups or these groups that are currently being suffocated. So this is not only in Philippines but also in Thailand and Indonesia. I will just present very quickly one case in southern Thailand where the terrorist groups are engaged again in this type of activity. Let me also share with you about the drug issue. So I have had discussions in Manila with the Drug Enforcement Agency, and they also verified, and also my colleagues in the south, AFP, PNP and the intelligence community have verified how they are moving into drugs. These are few examples. And they have also justified the use of drugs to fund their activity. So they say that if they have no other resources, they can use drugs. So the drug pipeline, some parts of it is controlled by the terrorist groups, especially in the Sulu archipelago. These are the groups that are involved. And also ASG in a very big way. ASG itself have fragmented into creating Islamic State, Sulu Islamic State, Basilan Islamic State, Cotabato Islamic State, Marawi. So some of the IS entities are involved in drugs, but ASG in its original networks, they are still doing drugs. And this is the Basilan-led ASG, which is now engaged in drugs. And this is the MNLF, mostly the breakaway factions, not Nuri Misuare himself. Indonesia is a key source for cigarettes coming in, and this is the cigarette exports. And unfortunately, the Philippines is not benefiting from this revenue because the carrier of the drug are these groups. It's not recognized entities or the government. And this is the smuggling of illicit cigarettes into the Philippines. You don't have to make notes. I am very happy to share this presentation with you. You can request it from Protect. And these are the vessels that are involved in smuggling the cigarettes into the Philippines. And I have identified the vessels and the interdictions by name for your review. So these are the vessels, export vessels in 2021, and the number of trips they made to the Philippines. So it's a sustained operation. There may be some corruption in it, but that is for the Filipinos to investigate. It is not for me. My main mission is to present the case study to you. And here you can see how the growth in cigarette exports from Indonesia and the losses. So it's one of the significant loss of revenue to the Philippine government. Here you can see the Trade Minister, Zulkifli Hassan, he mentioned that there's a difficulty in exporting domestic cigarettes products to foreign countries. He's specifically referring to the Philippines. These are the attempts, but I want to say that more recently there have been very significant interdictions both by PNP, AFP and by other entities. So this is the government state response. They have improved, but there are few corrupt entities and they need to be dismantled. So this is the Indonesian media reporting, and there's also comments and assessments of smuggling activities of these armed groups. This is the groups involved in the drug aspect. So we are seeing cigarettes and drugs are parallel, but cigarettes pose a lesser risk to them and equal profit as drugs. So we have seen that in the past, drugs were used to fund part of the Marawi siege. There was a lot of other funds that came as well. So even the most puritanical terrorist groups that claim to profess ideology of Islam, they have moved into the drug space. These are the funding sources. These are the individuals who were involved based on the arrests. And this is the groups and the individuals specifically involved in the drug trade. So the assessment is terrorism and illicit drug trade coexist with the local terrorist groups, and the recent neutralization and the recovery of drugs has been very well established. And unfortunately, the Sulu Peninsula, Tawi-Tawi, Basilan and Sulu is the key route. I call it the terrorist highway, but it's also a highway for drugs and illicit cigarettes. Let me make a very final conclusion, that a final recommendation. One is, it's imperative to work very closely with BAM. It's important to develop the cooperation between the armed forces, both AFP and PNP working together. And next is to ensure that the corrupt elements are neutralized, to review the law. The law in the Philippines is still very weak. It's very human rights oriented, and I think it has to be revised to support the government efforts in the fight against both drugs and terrorism. Thank you very much.